Good evening, everyone, and welcome to WDW Opinion Live. Thank you so very much for being here. My name is Conor Brown, and I'm a lifelong Disney fan who's been traveling to the parks for over 20 years, and I'm also a former cast member, so I know what it takes to make the magic. My passion is simple. It's to help you plan for and daydream about your next perfect Disney World vacation. I do that by sharing my knowledge through my blog, podcast, these Facebook live streams, and so much more. You can learn about all of our content over on WDWOpinion.com. Everyone, I hope you're having a great Tuesday, a great start to your week. This is one of my favorite days of the week because I get to spend it with you guys, my fellow opinioneers. Always happy to talk Disney and always excited to talk Disney with such a passionate group like yourselves. Listen, if you're new here, go ahead and say hi in the comments. Let us know where you're coming from, but also go ahead and contribute to the conversation. This isn't just me talking to a camera. This is all of us coming together to form conversations about all the latest news when it comes to Disney World. So go ahead and keep that chat stream going. Austin always kicks it off first. He's one of our favorite fans, a dear friend, of course. Austin from Orlando, and Lou coming all the way from Brazil. Good to see you, Lou, as always. Thanks for dropping by. Guys, we have a couple stories to talk about today, and then we'll get into some WDW opinion content. But before we get there, if you think your friends would love to be here as well, do me a favor and share this out on Facebook. That way we can build our community more and more, get more opinioneers, more people contributing to the conversation. So go ahead and share this video out if you think there are other friends that you want to invite here. Hello, Joanne. How are you? Coming from across the pond. I hope you are doing well. Thank you for being here. All right, guys, let's get into our first Disney news story of the week, and that is the NBA Experience to open August 12th. So the NBA Experience is a new one-of-a-kind environment packed with 13 interactive and hands-on activities across 44,000 square feet and 2 floors. So this has been announced for many years, but we're finally getting an official opening date, which is going to be this August the 12th. A slam dunk challenge where guests can change the height of a standard hoop from 10 foot as low as 7 feet to perform their own superstar moves captured by burst photography. So that's going to be one of the cool exhibits there. You know, I bet Austin Lee is all for that. He loves dunking on a 7-foot hoop. That's how he's his athletic prowess, I guess you could say. Other things include an activity that tests shooting skills with spots on a court that light up as guests move from one location to one location. There's also a way for guests to see how they stack up to some of the world's best basketball players. You can get personalization for various activities, including your own name, associating the activities that you've done with it, but then also comparing yourselves to other NBA, WNBA players, putting yourself in an NBA or a WNBA team. There's also real-time technology that aggregates statistics across the NBA and WNBA games, and players, are constantly being updated like that. And no Disney attraction, no Disney restaurant even isn't complete without, of course, a very extensive merchandise location. This store is going to have all of your NBA merch, no matter what your team is. I'm sure they're going to have the more popular players there, but it'll definitely be a good place to pop in to pick up some gear from your favorite team. What I want to talk about this is I'll be honest, I'm a little wary of this location, of this place. And typically I'm a guy who says, go ahead, open it up, whatever it is, then we can judge it. Now, I'm not judging this. What I'm merely asking the question is, does this fit in the new Disney Springs? Right? Because the old downtown Disney, I think, the old downtown Disney West Side, this is perfect. This was a perfect location for it. Downtown Disney West Side was a lot of, here's a big thing that we don't know where else to put it, so let's just put it there. It's where Disney Quest was, House of Blues is still there, Cirque du Soleil. They used to have the Virgin Megastore, which was a gigantic, record store. It was kind of a place where a lot of big things they put that just didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Now, when they switched to Disney Springs, the Springs area, the landing as well, really became a place rooted in Old Town Florida, right? They came up with all these kind of backstories, this village vibe, very cool. And yes, while there are big brands, big restaurants, it kind of all came together as this is a town, this is a community, this is where it makes sense. Kind of a place you would go into your own town to go shop, your place to be. That's what they like to call it. The town center is a perfect description of that. When they announced the NBA experience, it kind of had me scratching my head because one, there used to be this over at Universal, their main rival at City Walk. That seemed like a very City Walk thing to do. But here it just doesn't seem to fit in with me when it comes to what Disney Springs is trying to be, what Disney wants Disney Springs to be. It seems like it's kind of forced. It seems like, hey, we had this gigantic building in Disney Quest that wasn't performing well. Rather than just, take the space out completely, let's really start from scratch, but keep that same size space and bring the NBA experience to Disney Springs. It's very interesting. And Joanne is saying that she remembers the Virgin store. And what was good about the Virgin store is I think, whether you're buying records or posters or movies, that was a place where locals could potentially go to get something, or someone who I bought a lot of like band t-shirts there because my aesthetic really wasn't about going to, getting Disney merch. I didn't really like that a whole much. I was more, hey, what if I could grab this band t-shirt? That's one of my favorite bands. But I'll remember I got this at Disney. That was a Disney souvenir. I think one of the big things with Disney Springs and what Disney was trying to accomplish was to bring in more locals. And I think the landing, I think the town center has totally accomplished that. What with more diverse shopping, more diverse dining, unique dining locations, and really a place where with ample parking now, locals can go just to spend the day, just to even eat dinner, and then head back out somewhere else. I don't know if this NBA experience is going to be appealing to anyone in particular. I don't know if it's going to be a destination in and of itself. There's a destination in Cirque du Soleil with the new show that's coming. There's even a destination in House of Blues with, depending on the bands that are coming. But I don't know if this is I gotta go there, I'm a local, I'm gonna be there all the time. Austin Lee is saying the NBA experience sounds awesome. Austin says that. Austin, I have a question for you. You're an Orlando local. Is this something you would go out of your way to experience, not just once, but multiple times? Or do you think this is kind of a one and done thing? Even with Splitsville, that was a big thing, but you can always bowl. Each time you bowl, it's going to be a different experience. I don't know how different this is going to be time and time again. I think it's unique. I think it's cool. I'm also interested to see, if you go in, will everything be free or do you have to pay kind of here and there and this and that? There's a lot of remaining questions. So that's just what I'm posing. I'm not saying this is going to be awful. I'm not saying this is going to be great. I always reserve my judgment until something opens. I might be upset about something that's going away. I might be confused about what's coming. In this regard, I am a little confused, but I won't make a full judgment until it actually does open. I think it's an interesting thing. There's a lot of questions that still need to be answered, but the one question we have is, when is it opening? August 12th. We know that for sure. Now, there's also a second element to this area, and that is CityWorks. CityWorks is going to be a it's not really a brewery, it's more like a craft beer area, but I don't think they're going to brew any of their own beers, but it's an 8,632 square foot bar and restaurant. I guess you could call it a brew pub in a way, again, but they're not brewing their own beers there. And that's called CityWorks, and it's expected to open next summer as well, this upcoming summer as well, nearby. We think it's going to be adjacent to it, meaning it's going to be connected in some way, kind of on the bottom floor, but you'll be able to enter through another area. We haven't gotten a confirmation on when that will be opening, but fingers crossed that it does open in time or near August 12th, like when this is opening, the NBA experience is opening. Austin saying, maybe a one and done for some. I'm a big NBA fan, so I can see myself going with friends often. So I think that's cool. I think, if this is kind of a museum kind of thing, maybe they bring in, unique experiences. Maybe they change up exhibits. I think that's where it really becomes appealing to that repeat guest. Other than, it's not even like the Basketball Hall of Fame. I think there has to be a couple additional elements for people to go there, but we shall wait and see. I am excited and intrigued at what CityWorks, that restaurant, is going to be. Again, it seems like it's going to have a lot of beers on tap. It's going to seem like it's, indoor, outdoor. Anytime you can get kind of that style of restaurant at Disney, very excited. Kind of more laid back, just, belly up to the bar, take care of business, as it were. So there you go. The NBA experience is opening August 12th. Once it opens, when we're able to get back out there, we'll let you know what our thoughts and opinions on it are. All right, second news story of the week is that, hey, there's something else coming to Disney Springs. There's a new brunch offering at Wine Bar George. So I will say this, Wine Bar George seems to have become the darling of the new restaurants that have opened in Disney Springs as of late. Of course, other recent ones dating back to several years ago, Morimoto Asia, people really like. Jack Lindsay's Hangar Bar, people really like. The Boathouse, Homecoming, people really, really like. But Wine Bar George seems to be something that people, locals especially, really, really, really love. It's still kind of under the radar for a lot of people, but I think it's very appealing. And it's going to be even more appealing now that they're offering brunch. Joanne is saying, I look forward to CityWorks, but not so keen on the NBA experience. Joanne, I think they really needed to add in that restaurant to the NBA experience, adjacent to the NBA experience, just to get more people, excited about it. Because I think so many people love to go to Disney Springs for all of these dining options, and, they keep adding to them. We just had Haleo open. We just had Haleo's quick service restaurant, Pepe, open as well. Wine Bar George is beginning to offer new menu items, as we'll discuss in a little bit. And that CityWorks is also coming in. So as long as they can keep that coming, keep that fresh mentality of, ooh, there's something new I have to try, I think it's going to be appealing, and repeat visitors are definitely gonna want to go. So the new brunch menu at Wine Bar George, starting on March 30th, Wine Bar George at Disney Springs will begin serving brunch on Saturdays and Sundays only from 11 a.m. until 3 p.m. The options include, for starters, you can get an artisanal cheese board, a burrata with avocado, bacon, and ciabatta bread, grilled romaine with dressing, the famous crispy mac and cheese bites. You can get the big board, which is a big charcuterie board. Sue Brown, hello from Maryland. Sue, you've recently been to Wine Bar George, and I hear you like it. You told me that. So what was your favorite thing at Wine Bar George, and would you be interested in trying this new brunch that they're offering? So when it comes to the entrees and the main course for brunch, they have Eggs Benedict, a brunch staple here in America. French toast, they have sausage, gravy, and biscuits, steak and eggs, and then the wine country omelet as well. Linda, thank you so very much for being here, and hello from you're from Orlando as well. Awesome. So as a local, Linda, is Disney Springs a place that you find yourself going to time and time again because they really want to amp up that local vibe? Let us know what you think. No. So the big thing for Wine Bar George, yes, all that stuff sounds great. Their charcuterie boards, their crispy mac and cheese bites, Eggs Benedict French toast, their wine country omelet, all sounds great. But the two big things that Disney fans for sure are going to love at Wine Bar George: the Dole Whip Mimosa and the frozen Dole Whip Frascata. That is right. They're going to have a Dole Whip Mimosa, which is Moscato, Dole Pineapple, I would assume juice, and Prosecco. And then the frozen Dole Whip Frascato is Moscato, vodka, pineapple, and it's going to be frozen, kind of like a frosé, like a frozen rosé. This is a frozen Moscato, but it's got all that extra stuff, the pineapple and the vodka as well. Everyone can rejoice. We have more Dole Whip options. I'll say this, I like the Dole Whip. I think they're very, very, very overhyped. I love the fact that you can really only get it in Disney World, Disneyland, and then in the Dole Pineapple Plantation in Hawaii. But I also like that they're opening it up to other restaurants. Wine Bar George is independently owned and operated, as pretty much all of the restaurants at Disney Springs are. But the fact that Disney is letting them do this, is letting them play with their classic staples, their classic Dole Whips, is very cool, offering it in alcoholic form, which so many people have been clamoring for, I know, ever since a couple years ago when they had the alcoholic Dole Whip. I believe they first introduced at one of the Epcot festivals. This is cool because it's kind of a take on that, but it's not, centering on the Dole Whip. It's a mimosa. It's a brunch staple, but now you can get it in Dole Whip form. It's a frozen Moscato, an interesting thing in and of itself, and then you add that Dole Whip vibe to it as well. Sue is saying that when they went to Wine Bar George, she really liked mac and cheese bites, and the steak was great. People always rave about that steak. And then Lou is saying, here's a big quote. She's saying, this new brunch sounds amazing. I have a goal in life to get to know all the restaurants in Epcot and in Disney Springs, but they keep adding new stuff. I guess I'll keep having to come back. Lou, that is an incredible goal. I love that goal, and I think Disney is just going to make it more and more difficult for you to achieve that goal with all these new awesome restaurants. But like you said, Lou, you just got to keep coming back more and more as if you needed a reason to, right? Brandon is saying that the Dole Whip is overrated. I'll tell you this much. I think it's overrated when it comes to the hype, but every time I get it, I do enjoy it. So I think there's an appeal to it. It's cool. It's a time and place sort of thing, but it's not something where I have to get my Dole Whip. I have to get my Dole Whip. I have to get my Dole Whip. I think my sister is like that. She very much, I would like a Dole Whip every single trip she goes, but it's just one of those cool Disney things, and I think that's the real appeal. The fact that you can only get it here, it's a Disney treat. That's why it's cool. It's when you have it, I'm in my happy place in Disney World. Well, Brandon, maybe that Dole Whip product might be overrated, but I will say this mimosa, this Frascato, sounds pretty tasty. They're just adding in pineapple to it. I'm a big fan of pineapple, so I'll definitely have to give that a shot. And like I said, people really seem to love Wine Bar George. I think this appeals to a bigger crowd when it comes to brunch, but I also wanted to discuss this because, like I said, Wine Bar George is independently owned and operated, as most of the restaurants in Disney Springs are. I think really the only ones are a couple of the bar areas, but most dedicated restaurants at Disney World are independently owned and operated, or at Disney Springs are independently owned and operated. What I think is very cool is that before Disney Springs, you didn't really get things like, oh, we're only going to do brunch here. Oh, we're going to have, a happy hour. Oh, we're going to do a special event thing. Well, Disney Springs restaurants, the ones that are independently owned, they're saying, hey, we got to market ourselves better. We got to pull in people, that wouldn't necessarily just stop by for their vacation. We got to pull in people who are A, going to be here on their vacation, but B, are locals who want to come back time and time again. They're treating themselves like a normal restaurant, not like a vacation restaurant. And that's great, because before, when all the restaurants were owned by Disney, it was, they're going to eat at a Disney restaurant. Why would we give them any discount at all? Now with all these other restaurants owned by other groups, they're saying, we got to compete with those guys over there, Disney over there, and we got to compete for everyone coming to Disney World to say, hey, come to our restaurant, choose us for one of your meals on vacation. Things like these brunch offerings are things that never used to be done before, but they just add more options to the place, to the table. When it comes to happy hours, that was something you would never see. It was unheard of. But now places are offering that, like Stargazers, the bar at the Planet Hollywood Observatory in Disney Springs. Other places are starting to do it, and actually Disney is learning from that. Disney is starting to roll out happy hours at their certain restaurants as well. So I think like brunch, like special events that Morimoto Asia has. They have a sake festival every year. Like Art Smith has like a guest bartender come in once a month to host an event. Other places like Maria and Enzo's in Disney Springs, they also started having a brunch. The Edison does things like they're doing a Halloween time event. They did a New Year's time event. So those cool events, I think, are appealing to a lot of people, locals, return guests, things like that. And it's just another unique way that Disney Springs is bringing so much more to the table. Wine Bar George's brunch, I think, is just one additional element of that. Very excited for that. I will let you know if we ever do try it out. All right, it was a slow news week this week, so that's all we got right now. But let's move on to some WDW Opinion content, shall we? All right, so this week's podcast piggybacked on the last week's podcast. So last week on the show, we talked about what are the attractions you're supposed to love, meaning everyone who goes there says, you gotta love this attraction. You know, it's a classic. You gotta love this attraction. It's great. Well, as Hank and I, my co-host on the WDW Opinion podcast, were talking, we said, well, what if there's another side to that story? What if there were attractions we're supposed to hate or supposed to dislike? A little interesting, right? A little interesting. Let's get caught up on some comments, though. Sue Brown is saying the more happy hour options, the better. Couldn't agree with you more, Sue. And Joanne is saying we will be celebrating our daughter's wedding at the Boathouse. Awesome, very cool, very excited to see what is on the menu there. Always excited, and those are also places that change up the menu more often than Disney-owned restaurants, which I think is cool for a lot of people as well. All right, getting back to the podcast. Now, I don't like to use the word hate or dislike when it comes to Disney World because you can't really hate anything about it, right? But I think when it comes to attractions, Disney has a long and storied career of making incredible attractions for the parks. They're really the best at it, no doubt about it. But no one's perfect, you know? There has to be a dud every once in a while along the way. So as my co-host and I were talking, Hank, we said, well, what are the attractions that, we're not supposed to like, but do we actually like them? And what we realized is attractions like Living with the Land, you're not supposed to like, right? Why are you supposed to like that ride? It's a boat ride that goes maybe 1 mile an hour. You go through some old scenes, and then, you go through a greenhouse. To the average park goer, not the opinioneers like ourselves, the diehard Disney World fans, if you got on that attraction, you'd leave that attraction saying, what was that? That didn't make any sense. The average theme park fan or theme park goer, they want to see fast, intense. They want to see e-ticket attractions, technology, advanced attractions. So those attractions like, Living with the Land, maybe even Spaceship Earth, I think don't really make sense to a lot of people. So in reality, we're supposed to hate them, not hate them. We're supposed to dislike them, I should say. We're supposed to scratch our heads and say, that ride doesn't make any sense. But I think because it's Disney, because we're uber fans, those rides are, appealing to us. And I think, while we're supposed to maybe not like those rides, we do end up liking them. Now, we also talked about the other side, attractions that a lot of people seem to hate, but do we hate them? An attraction like Frozen Ever After, is that an attraction we don't like, or is it an attraction that we do like, but everyone else just likes to hate on it? It's an interesting topic, but when it comes to some of these rides, as Linda is saying, maybe you just need a break and it's in the AC. And that's true. I think there's a lot of attractions like that that can accommodate that need. But I also think that there are attractions that, while some might use it for AC, I think others really, really love it. And that's where you get into that discussion of, well, why do people might not like this? Why is this way? It was an interesting discussion. But getting back to Frozen Ever After, what we realized is the rides that people, dislike or hate even, are rides that were different before. Meaning they had an original version, something changed, and now people don't like the new version. I think that's what it really comes down to, and that's what Hank, my co-host, and I really dug into. We realized, you know what it is? It's people just don't like change. That's what it is. So when it comes to Frozen Ever After, people were upset that Maelstrom went away. Regardless that no one really ever went on Maelstrom, and a lot of people go on this attraction. We both love Frozen Ever After. And I think, yes, it's sad that something had to leave in order for this to take its place, but I think those other rides are also telling, Maybe people don't like Winnie the Pooh, the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh in Fantasyland, because Mr. Toad's Wild Ride used to be there. Maybe people don't like, an attraction. An interesting example of this is the Tiki Room. So while there are certain iterations of attractions that they don't like the current attraction, the Tiki Room is actually the opposite. It was an original version, and then they changed it to under new management. Everyone hated that version, and then they changed it back to pretty much the original version, and people now say, well, the version current today is fine, but that middle version sucked, and therefore this isn't good anymore. It leaves a sour taste in their mouth. That's very, very interesting, and it's just a weird concept, It's like people have these emotional connections to Disney rides, right? There's a reason why you love it. It's a time and a place thing. It's a memory thing. So when you do change it, maybe, it wasn't the most popular attraction, but someone had diehard feelings for it. And that's why people, I think, are upset or dislike certain rides because of that change, because their memories, they think, are changed or altered in that regard. One ride that I think is universally hated now is Journey into Imagination, or Your Imagination, whatever they're calling it these days. There you go, Brandon. You're right on with that. They ruined Journey into Imagination. I think that's pretty much a universally accepted truth. People really didn't like it. Well, the first iteration people absolutely loved. I think it was classic Disney at its finest. They kind of changed it here a little bit, and then they tweaked it a little more, and then all of a sudden we're stuck with something completely different. It doesn't include the Dream Finder, which was an original attraction, or original character in that. So that's something that people really, really hate it because, one, it's a bad attraction, but two, what it used to be was so great. So it still has people clamoring for the past, for what that is. Sue Brown brings up an interesting point. She says, I really dislike the new bird show at Animal Kingdom. Wish they hadn't changed it. That would be, now it's called Up a Great Bird Adventure. Before that, Flights of Wonder, as it was called, was really a show that some people liked, some people didn't like. I think now people really don't really care for it. I think the storyline doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. They added in characters in Up that people really love, but it didn't add to the story at all. So that's what we kind of discussed on this show today. Why are certain attractions disliked, and are those reasons justified? But also, do we like them? Why do we like them? Things like that. Also on this episode of the podcast, we had a Disney Legend of the Month. That's when every month we basically honor a legend who worked at Disney, who's not named Disney. It's our way of showing thanks and gratitude to the people, not named Walt Disney, who contributed to the success of the park, because it's so easy to say Walt Disney did everything, but his real magic was in assembling teams that were just as creative, if not more creative than him, and then giving them the tools to execute on that. This week's Legend of the Month is Bob Gurr. Bob Gurr is awesome. He's still with us today, and he still does actually a lot of tours, Disney tours. He has his own exclusive tour that every couple of months he'll do a tour around LA. This guy is known for Disney building classic Disney vehicles, things like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, those vehicles. The Autotopia, now the Tomorrowland Indy Speedway vehicles. He was the originator in Disneyland. But what he's most known for, well, he's also done Doom buggies, at Haunted Mansion. What he's most known for is creating the monorail. How cool is that? He basically came up with the design of it. He came up with, worked very closely with the engineers on how they were going to build it, things like that. And that's just an iconic Disney attraction. Or Disney vehicle. It's something that, if you look behind me, right there, we got a monorail poster right there. It's just so iconic. People know exactly what it looks like. And he's actually worked on, I believe, almost all of the iterations, almost all the versions of the monorail. So that's something very, very cool. We talk about Bob Gurr. So guys, that's an episode you do not want to miss. Head over to wdwopinion.com/episode 35. So that you can listen in. And listen, if you have listened to the show before, do us a favor, leave a review. That helps others find the podcast as well, so we can grow this WDW Opinioneers community. That's a great way to do it. So if you're listening on iTunes, just click, leave a review in the podcast description. Give us 5 stars if we're deserving of 5 stars. And I'm going to start reading out some reviews on air as well. So if you want to get your review read on air on the next episode, be sure to leave a review on the podcast there. All right, we had a lot of fun recording that, but then let's get to our article of the week. It's an article I just posted on the blog yesterday evening. It's the best Disney books, the best books about Disney and about Disney World. Growing up, in between trips, I tried to find as much Disney and Disney World content as humanly possible. Whether it was videos, whether it was blogs, whether it was message boards, about people coming back from their trips, I would devour it all. And I really wasn't a big reader when I was growing up. But I realized, what? If I have a good Disney book, I'm going to just completely immerse myself in it. Read it cover to cover like that. And books became a really big medium, a very important medium for me in, taking the time from one trip to the next trip to kind of pass the time, to learn about Disney, to grow my love of Disney, but then also to help me live vicariously when I wasn't actually in the parks. So I talked about a lot of great books. If you go over to wdwopinion.com and search books, you'll be able to find that blog post. We also have links to Amazon so that you can buy those books, which is great. I talked about a lot that just really dive into, how the Imagineers built certain attractions. You see a couple there where the bottom 3 on the image are, one is a Marty Sklarber book. He was the president of Imagineering. He's got a lot of crazy insider stories. The bottom 2 books have a lot of great artist renderings. Walt Disney World Unofficial Guide. That's a really cool book, just kind of use as a resource because you can't know everything about Disney World. It's a world after all. And then Disney War at the top. That's a book that is very thick, as you can tell, and it actually talks about the corporate side of things during the Eisner era, the Michael Eisner, who was the chairman and CEO of the Disney company for about 20 years. That has a lot of crazy, awesome stories in there, but I also have a lot of other good books on that list. It's something that can help you build your Disney passion, build your Disney knowledge, but like I said, help you from in between trips, from one trip to the next, help you pass the time. It can help you plan for your next vacation as well. So be sure to head over to wdwopinion.com to look at that blog post. And if you think I missed a blog or a book that you really love about Disney, shoot me an email, Conor, CONOR, at wdwopinion.com, and I might even add it to the list if you think it's worthy of doing so. So that was a lot of fun to write. I enjoy sharing my opinions on all those books with you guys, with you opinioneers. You've probably heard me mention that a couple times. I think we have a bunch of opinioneers here today, but if you're new here and you're not sure what an opinioneer is, Well, it's what we call ourselves, right? We took the word opinion for all the Disney opinions we have, and Mouseketeer for our love of Disney, and we mashed them together, and that brings us the WDW Opinioneers. If you are watching this right now, you are an Opinioneer, and we have just the place for you over on Facebook, on our Facebook group. If you go to wdwopinion.com/opinioneers, you can request to join that group. We'll let you in, no problem at all. And it's really a way for us to talk about Disney, to share our passion of Disney, and to connect with others who love Disney just like we do. If you're planning a trip and you have a question you want to ask, that's a perfect sounding board. If you have a interesting tidbit you want to share, or maybe you want to share some pictures from a recent trip, that's where you're going to be able to connect with your community the best. That's where we're always interacting. If you think this is cool, chatting in real time each week, think about communicating with your group, with your people, with your tribe, no matter the time or the day. That's where the WDW Opinioneers community comes in. Guys, like I say each and every week, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so very much for doing all this, for contributing to that group, for commenting on all of our posts, for listening to the podcast, and for joining in here. It means the world. I really am, ecstatic each week when I get to do this, when I get to see that people actually enjoy the content that we're creating for WDW Opinion, and it's all for you guys. Like I say, my passion is to help you plan for and daydream about that next Disney vacation. This community helps you do that just as well. I have some interesting news about next week. So typically we have a good show every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Next week, we're not going to be able to do it, okay? That's because I'm going to be packing, because I'm headed to Disney World. That's right, next week I'll be in Disney World. So go ahead and turn on notifications. You can do that by going up at the top of the WDW Opinion page. Turn on notifications so that you'll get a notification each time we go live, because instead of going live on Tuesday like we do normally here, I'm going to go live a couple times throughout the week in the parks so that we can talk and chat in real time, and we can have Disney World as the backdrop as we do that. I think that's going to be really, really cool. Austin, thank you so very much for being here, my man. I will see you very soon. Thanks for tuning in. Joanne, always good to see you. Thanks for that kind note as well. Hope you have a great rest of your week. And Lou, thank you again as well. I love sharing my knowledge with all of you guys. I'll continue to do it if you guys continue to listen. But I think that's going to do it for me this week. Guys, have a great rest of your week. Remember, be sure to turn on those notifications, because we'll be broadcasting live from Disney World next week. It's going to be a ton of fun. But until then, I'll see you real soon.